Hi guys, this video is in case you listened to my last video and about curriculum and started poking around the internet to look for your curriculum options, and now you're panicking a little bit. For starters, everybody panics in the beginning. There is so much out there, and everybody thinks that their way is the best way. Obviously, they wouldn't be homeschooling that way if they didn't think it was best. Um, some people are trying to get you to buy their way of homeschooling, so they really, really want you to think that their way is best. So there's a lot of really strong opinions out there. There's a lot of options out there, and it's really overwhelming. Okay, so we're going to talk through that. The very first thing is I'm going to tell you what I tell my kids. So the first thing I'm going to say is take a breath out. Okay, so you don't take a breath in, because when you take a breath in, you can still stay like really tense and panicked. But when you breathe out, you don't really have that choice. You're kind of telling your body to relax. So you take a breath out. Okay. So a couple of things. The first thing is the stuff that you're seeing online is all true and wonderful and good, and also intentionally made to look good. Nobody is putting their worst day online. Even if they're describing their worst day to you online, they're not posting pictures of themselves at their worst. You know, even the blog posts that have pictures of tantruming children tend to have carefully selected pictures of tantruming children. And that's okay. Nobody ought to necessarily put their worst day on the internet. I certainly don't want my worst moments on the internet. I don't want my kids' worst moments on the internet. That's not fair to them. It's okay that everything is kind of intentionally made to look good. I find it really helpful and inspirational to look at YouTubers and blogs that are gorgeous and pulled together. That's all good. However, literally nobody that homeschools looks like that all the time. No matter what curriculum, no matter how great a teacher you are, no matter how wonderful your kids are, it is not going to look like the internet all the time. It's practically never going to look like the internet, to be honest. Even on your great days, and the great days really are great. They don't look like a blog post or a website. Okay, so that's the first thing. Keep in mind, you're real people. The people posting are also real people, but they've decided what to post, right? So they're posting the stuff that they want you to see. Okay, so secondly, there are a ton of options out there. So the first thing to do is really start weeding some things out. In the last video, I talked about, throw out whole categories, right? So unschooling sounds like, code for unparenting. Don't look at unschooling stuff. Just completely throw it out. So now you've got some stuff narrowed down. If the idea of online schooling is stressful to you, again, that to me is by far the most stressful option. Just rule it out. You don't have to do it. Okay, so you've ruled some major categories out, but there's a lot out there. Okay, so here are some other things to start looking at. At this point, you're going to need to start thinking through your family and the way your family works and the things that matter. So some big questions, start with, is your family religious? Are you a Christian? Do you care if your curriculum tells you about God? Are you atheists? Is it going to bother you if you have a curriculum that continues to talk about God creating the earth? Is that something that you're happy to just tell your kids, oh, some people believe that, we don't, whatever? Or is it going to bother you? If constant references to God are going to bother you, that's going to rule out, honestly, a lot of curriculum, because homeschooling has changed, but there's still a lot of religious influence in everything from the curriculums to the organizational structure of the whole thing. So, that's going to rule out things for you right there. Do you care? If you are a Christian, do you care? Does your history teach 7-day creation versus evolution, or does your science? That kind of stuff is going to make some really easy decisions for you really, really quickly. Other things to look at. Does your family like to read? There are really, really great curriculums that are based primarily around literature and the idea of really good books. If you don't like to read, you probably don't want Sunlight, for example, is a really great curriculum, but it is it's literature based. It's tons of books. If you don't like to read, if your kids don't like to read, you probably don't want to do Sunlight. And let's just be like really honest with each other. Don't look at the website and think, oh, it would be so awesome if my kids like to read, and if I get these good books, my kids are just going to love to read. They're not. I would love it if they would. Again, I am all about reading, but your children are not going to turn into lovers of classical books overnight. So if your goal is to someday get there, that's great. And honestly, later on, I can talk about. In fact, I would love to talk about reading and getting kids to love to read. But for right now, you are not trying to make your family anything besides what they already are. Okay, so if your family um, loves schedules, if you guys are used to public school life and all of you want somebody to tell you every day, okay, listen, do this notebook, do this piece of paper, be done. That's great. Find a curriculum that is very scheduled. If that stresses you out, if you know for a fact that your family cannot get it pulled together enough to complete a checklist every day, and you're going to be stressed out because then, okay, well, do I keep going or do I go back to this? Pick one that is not quite as scheduled. Pick one that has a flow but doesn't have a daily list of things to do. You know what's best for your family. You know how your family functions. And honestly, quite frankly, if it comes down to a tie, I don't know, if it comes down to your kids function one way and you function another way, you're going to need to make some choices. But the bottom line is pick something that's going to work for you as the parent. And then you can tweak those things as you go. But really, if you're the one enforcing everything, you're going to want something that you feel like you can enforce. Because later on, we're going to get into like, my kid doesn't want to do it. If you honestly don't want to do it either, or you have no idea how to do it, it's not gonna go well. You want to come from a place of, this is something that I'm at least um, somewhat comfortable with, even if I've never done it before. Like the bottom line idea I get. Okay, so yeah, so take into account what your family is like. Take into account what's important. Are you Christians? Are you not Christians? Do you care? Do you like to read? Do you need a schedule? How about, are you guys really artsy? Do you want one of those curriculums that has you doing like hands-on glitter? Let me tell you, I'm sure I'll talk about this later because it's a running theme in our homeschool life. My husband hates glitter. I actually like glitter. I have no problem with glitter. So we have learned over our many years of marriage to manage our relationship despite our differences in opinion about glitter. But if you don't like glitter and you don't like mess and you don't want to go out and buy a bunch of art supplies, do not pick a curriculum that's based on these really, really gorgeous ideas of like hands-on, themed things that tie in with what you're learning. Just don't do it. Pick something else. Okay, so you've ruled out some stuff. First of all, you're remembering that you are not online. You are not an online presence. You don't need to be. You don't need to look perfect. Your kids are not going to look perfect. You're ruling out some stuff based on your personal family, what your family needs, what your family doesn't need. The last thing that I would look at, really, and maybe I should have led with this to be honest, because it's kind of a big one, but you, again, really need to look at the time versus money thing and be realistic about it. If your curriculum, if you're looking at, you're like, yeah, that's totally going to work because I'll lay out before bed, the kids, not before bed, the kids will go to bed, and before I go to bed, I'm going to lay out, all this, and that's how this is going to work. And you know that you don't have time, and that when you hit bedtime, you are done. Don't go that route. Be honest with yourself about how much energy and how much money you can put into this. And again, I'm going to try really hard to continue to make some videos. If you don't have time, and you don't have money, and you don't have energy, and you don't have patience, I have been there. I have been there. So I'm going to try to at least pull together my thoughts on how I handle those things. But for right now, as you're looking at curriculum, be honest with yourself. If you don't have a ton of time to manage kids, you don't necessarily, again, want, I keep going back to Sunlight. I actually really like Sunlight as a curriculum, but, there's a lot of hands-on stuff in that. You might not want that. If you don't have it, you might need an online program where somebody else has basically already done all the work. It might not be your ideal. Hey, maybe you love homeschooling so much that next year you have a little more energy. We're not in the middle of a literal worldwide pandemic. So you do the gorgeous Sunlight next time. Or maybe this time you try Sunlight because whatever. And then next year you're like, that was really horrible. That was dumb. Next year do the online learning thing. Maybe that's perfect for you. But for right now, just for this minute, you're thinking about how much time and how much money do I actually have to put into this, because you can put in a ton of both. But who has a ton of both, right? So you're going to have to balance that. You're going to have to make some decisions based on that. And again, I'm going to do my very best to pull together some resources that might help if you don't have either. But again, I also don't have a ton of time, so don't count on me. Although I hope to be here for you guys. Start making some decisions based on what your family actually wants and what your family can honestly handle time wise and money wise. So that's it for now. Remember to keep breathing out, okay? It is gonna be okay. It is gonna be okay.